The Michigan Wolverines had a practice period that they titled Beat Georgia. And so to take a step back here, in college football, each practice is divided by periods. Like the first period is usually stretching, and then maybe it's special teams, then maybe it's individual drills. So you're kind of labeling what each period is during your practice. And Michigan went out of their way to label one of their periods the Beat Georgia period of their practice. And I saw this headline, read this story. I absolutely love this from Jim Harbaugh. I absolutely love this because what it is to me is Jim Harbaugh very, very clearly laying out for his football team that they are embracing all the pressure and everything that the mission is going to require for them in 2023. They're not tippy-toeing around their goals. What does it take to win the national title? Probably beating someone from the SEC. Who's the big dog in college football right now? The last 2 years, Georgia. Okay, what's our goal? Win a national title? Sounds like we got to go through Georgia to get there. I love that, man. I love that. You're not worried about what's going to be said on the outside or who thinks this, that, the other. You're making it very, very clear. We want to win a national title. We got to beat Georgia. We're going to focus every single freaking day on doing that. I absolutely love that. Now, here's one thing that's just, I think, so childish, but you'll hear it from the peanut gallery. People are going to say, well, you should have had to beat TCU, period. Give me a break, dude. Give me a break. Is the goal to beat TCU? Is that the end goal for Michigan? Is the goal just to make the national title? No, the goal is to win a national title. Now, Michigan knows they should have beat TCU last year. Michigan knows they had enough self-inflicted wounds to where they cost themselves a chance at playing for a national title last year. Absolutely. Is the goal to beat TCU? Don't think so. It's no secret who the big dog is. It's Georgia. So if we're putting our focus on one thing, that's winning a national title, then the byproduct would be that we beat TCU or whoever the, I guess TCU would be for the 2023 season. The goal is to beat Georgia. The goal is to win a national title. And you're honed in on that and you're focusing on it every single day. And I really love that for Michigan. I love that for their football team and what they're going to be in 23. Now, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're locked in. We got some more thoughts on this. We talk ball every day. Would love to have you all a part of this. Thank you in advance for that. So here's another thing that you're going to hear about them doing this Beat Georgia period during practice. There's going to be some people that see this and say, well, that's a little bit presumptuous of Michigan and Jim Harbaugh. It's a little bit weird, right? Just assuming they're going to end up at the national title game. They're just already looking past the rest of their schedule and looking at Georgia. Sounds like they're just kind of overlooking everything else. Sounds like they're not taking it one day at a time. I would say that the maturity that this football team has, it's going to allow them to handle a vision. Right? Like maturity as a whole allows you to see the big picture. And Michigan is top 5 in the country when it comes to returning production, so a lot of talent's back. Take it a step further, I think a lot of leadership is back at Michigan. J.J. McCarthy obviously is back. Michael Barrett, he's back. Blake Corum, he's back. Like a lot of the leaders in this locker room are still around. And when you have leadership and maturity, you're able to see what the end goal is. And it doesn't mean that you're looking past your schedule. It doesn't mean that you're just looking all the way to Georgia. It means that actually you have the maturity to understand the importance of each and every moment leading up to that. So beating Georgia isn't just about beating Georgia. Like that's the focus for this practice period, of course. But the understanding is if we want to get a chance to beat Georgia at Michigan, if we want a chance to play for all the marbles in a national title game, then we got to take the beat Georgia period seriously so we can beat Ohio State, so we can beat Michigan State, so we can beat whoever else is in our path. That's what maturity allows you to see. It's not looking past the schedule. It's actually looking more closely at your schedule, looking more closely at the one thing in front of you to get to that game against Georgia, because that's the ultimate goal for Michigan. And again, I just absolutely love this. For what it's worth, Michigan also had a beat Ohio State period in 2021. They're 2-0 since making that drill a reality. And for those of y'all asking what the drill is for the beat Georgia practice period, for Ohio State, when they had this in 2021, my understanding is it was a 9-on-7 drill, which is essentially just like a standard inside run period, but you're labeling it that to have the focus on, okay, we're trying to get after these cats 365 days a year. We're having our attention on when that game comes, we will have already played it out in our mind. We will have already put in the work during practice to get that done. So it's a run drill, I would assume, because that's what it was for the beat Ohio State practice period. But again, I absolutely love this from Michigan. So it's worth saying now, for Michigan, this isn't just like a nice slogan. It's not something you just put on a t-shirt, not something you just sort of put on a practice schedule and say, hey, beat Georgia period. We got that period 7. Make sure you're locked in. This is a team that can really do it. And when I say they can really do it, this is not a prediction. I'm not saying that Michigan should be favored against Georgia on a neutral site. I'm not saying any of that. Georgia's the top dog. You better make sure you respect the top dog when you walk in there. But when I look at what Michigan has on this roster and how they're made up physically, that's the real advantage for Georgia, is the trenches. Like, that's how they've just drugged people the last couple of years. That's how they drugged TCU in the national title game. I think the physicality at Michigan actually matches up okay for Georgia. And when I say they match up, I don't mean they're superior. I mean they're good enough, I think, to hold their own should they find themselves in a game against Georgia. Now, the real caveat to this is J.J. McCarthy and this Michigan offense together able to take that next step forward to where they're able to keep defenses off balance and keep them guessing. Because if you only have one trick and you play against Georgia, I say trick, one approach, which is run the football. We're going to run power run game. That's what we're doing. If that's the only move you have, well, then Georgia, with as physical as they are, they're going to be able to at least account for that without having to commit extra resources on the back end. And I don't mean to get too much into the X's and O's here, but what I'm trying to say is for Michigan to beat Georgia, it will require being able to take that next step in balance in that game. I'm not saying you'll see it for all 12 games. I'm saying when they play Georgia, when and if that game comes, they will need to be able to throw the football downfield consistently. But I absolutely love that we're talking about this right now with Michigan putting a focus on what their goals are, and Jim Harbaugh laying the gauntlet out very, very clearly for his team. Hey, you want to accomplish your goals? It's going to take beating Georgia, or whatever the equivalent of Georgia is in 23. But I personally believe it very well could be the Bulldogs for Michigan to try and win a national title. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.